34-year-old man appeared here at Wimbledon Magistrates Court today charged with murder. It comes after the human remains of two men were found inside two suitcases that were dumped.
The Metropolitan Police is now leading the search for a man who left suitcases containing the remains of two other men on the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. They're searching the area around a high-rise block in West London.
Two men murdered, butchered, and stuffed into suitcases like trash. This wasn't just a double homicide. It was a horror show that rocked London to its core. And now the man accused is trying to flip the script. But are you buying it? The discovery sent shockwaves through an entire nation.
Now we're here in West London in Shepherd's Bush, where through the day forensics officers have been searching a property behind me. Quite what the connection is to the suitcases found in Bristol containing human remains, or indeed to the chief suspect, we aren't clear.
Inside a seemingly ordinary London flat, an unimaginable nightmare. Two men, Paul Longworth and Albert Alfonso, found brutally murdered and methodically dismembered. Their heads found in a chest freezer. Let that sink in. This wasn't a messy crime of passion, it was cold, calculated, and cruel. The remains were packed into suitcases. Yes, suitcases, and hauled off across the country to the Clifton Suspension Bridge in Bristol. It's like something straight out of a horror film, only this is real life. And now, as the trial unfolds, the accused, Yostin Mosquera, is spinning a tale in court, blaming the victims and painting himself as somehow the one who suffered. Paul Longworth, 71, and Albert Alfonso, 62, partners in life, bound by a civil union in 2023, are now bound in death by one of the most disturbing cases in recent memory. But in court, Yostin Mosquera is turning the spotlight onto the victims. He claims he met Albert online back in 2012 and that Albert began paying him to perform sexual acts on camera. Mosquera says it escalated that he was paid £59, barely $80, for in-person acts during a 2022 visit to Colombia. And when he came to London in 2023, he claims he was coerced into continuing these acts, never paid, just given an air fryer. Yes, an air fryer. The narrative he's trying to sell is one of exploitation and manipulation. But is it true? Or a desperate grasp at sympathy?
Huge manhunt was sought for Yostin Andres Mosquera, a Colombian national, who was eventually arrested on Saturday and charged in the early hours of Monday.
Now let's talk about Yostin Mosquera, 35 years old, a Colombian national, and the man on trial for dismembering two human beings. But he says, I didn't murder them. He admits to manslaughter, but only of Albert Alfonso, claiming he lost control. He says he was forced into sexual acts, lured by promises to fund his English course. But those promises, according to him, never fulfilled. Instead, he walked away with an air fryer and trauma. The courtroom is now watching this story unfold, piece by piece, as Mosquera tries to shift the narrative away from cold-blooded killer to desperate victim. Picture this. Mosquera walks into the courtroom wearing a white shirt, jeans, and rosary beads around his neck, a symbol of faith, redemption, or manipulation.
With assistance from a Spanish interpreter, the Colombian national, who was wearing grey tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt, spoke only to confirm his name and date of birth.
He admits to stabbing Albert Alfonso during a sex act. And he's also accused of killing Paul Longworth with a hammer earlier that same day. Afterward, he allegedly dismembered, and dumped their remains in suitcases. He was caught on CCTV dragging a heavy red suitcase. You cannot make this up. His defense? That Albert Alfonso manipulated him, forced him into sexual acts, promised money that never came, and drove him to the edge. But is that enough to explain what happened next? The evidence is undeniable. The bodies were cut apart, parts found in a chest freezer, others inside suitcases tossed at the Clifton Suspension Bridge. One of those suitcases had an Arsenal FC towel inside. Surveillance footage shows Mosquera dragging luggage like it was just another weekend getaway, only it was filled with human remains. According to prosecutors, the timeline is chilling. Paul Longworth killed with a hammer. Albert Alfonso stabbed to death during a filmed encounter. But Mosquera? He's pushing a story of coercion, of fear. The question now is, can the jury see through it?
Yostin Mosquera, aged 34, appeared at the Old Bailey via video link today from HMP Belmarsh, accused of 2 counts of murder between the 8th and 10th of July. The Recorder of London, Judge Mark Lecraft, KC, remanded Mosquera in custody. He will next appear at the Old Bailey on October 2nd for a plea and trial preparation hearing.
This horror show didn't happen in a dark alley or an abandoned lot. It happened inside a home, behind closed doors. If you believe Mosquera, he was a victim, coerced, manipulated, and ultimately driven to snap. And that's what makes this case even more chilling. The possibility that unspeakable things were happening long before the murders, hidden behind curtains, beneath a roof shared by 3 men. The suitcases, dragged across London, dumped in broad daylight. He was approached at the bridge. A cyclist saw him, but he walked away. The system didn't catch him. Luck did. That's a terrifying reality. What this case has done to the families, to the city of London, and to everyone following it, it's hard to put into words. 2 men killed, chopped into pieces, and discarded like they were nothing. That alone is horrific. But now, Mosquera's testimony is twisting the emotional fabric even further. People are being forced to consider, was he also a victim? Was this more than just murder? It's enough to make your heart ache and your blood boil. Because at the end of the day, 2 men are gone. And we're left trying to understand how. So now the world watches. Will the jury believe Mosquera's version of events? Will they accept his claim that Albert Alfonso was the real manipulator? That he killed Paul Longworth first? That Mosquera only acted out of fear and desperation? Or will the cold facts, the suitcases, the dismemberment, the freezer speak louder than any testimony ever could? One thing's certain. This trial is far from over. And the outcome? It will set the tone for how we deal with the dark intersection of abuse, control, and murder.
Earlier this week, friends and neighbours of Paul and Albert paid tribute to the men, describing them as kind and loving people who you could have a good laugh and a joke with.
The suitcase horror will forever stain the record books of London's darkest crimes. Paul Longworth and Albert Alfonso deserve justice, real justice. And while the defense may want to blur the lines between predator and prey, the public sees the reality. 2 men were murdered, cut into pieces, and dumped like garbage. If Mosquera's story is true, it's heartbreaking. But if it's not, then it's one of the most manipulative, twisted defenses ever laid out in a courtroom. Either way, the trial forces us all to look at what can happen when pain, power, and silence fester behind closed doors. And one thing is clear: justice must not be confused with sympathy. Raw justice,